Good morning, guys. So today I'm chatting to one of my friends, Kate Winchester. And so I've known Kate for absolutely years. And it was way back in the day when I did a little bit of positive reinforcement training with a tricky horse that I've got. So, Kate, tell us a little bit about yourself and career.
Wow. How long have you got?
Buzzer starts now. Go.
In 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Uh, well, when I met you, I was on the cusp of quitting teaching, and I had discovered positive reinforcement training with horses and was uh, heading down that route of going back to uni.
Yeah.
And I ended up doing applied behavior analysis, which is the science of behavior. And gosh, how long did that take me? Quite a while because I did it part time.
Yeah.
And the drive to do it, I think, was that realization that I had so much knowledge practically applying positive reinforcement, but I wasn't fully able to share the science behind it. So I knew it worked. I'd used it in schools with kids intuitively. The horses, it came about just because I wanted a different approach.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I went back, I did it part-time. I did my master's in float loading using target training and positive reinforcement, which was a pretty big achievement. I did pretty well.
Yeah.
And I'm also fortunate to be in the to go to America to write it up. And I stayed with Shauna Carriage, who you
Yeah. I met.
met at the clinic. Yeah. And then I came back and I got a job working for the Ministry of Education. I was a psychologist as well as a board certified behavior analyst. And so I found myself back in education again, much to my disappointment, uh, and challenged, basically, severely challenged in trying to do the right thing within the constraints of a government um,
Yeah.
setup.
Trying to fit a round peg into a square hole or the other way around,
Yeah,
you know, and
yeah,
trying to make changes, which is always difficult.
yeah. And it started to affect me definitely. You know, it was so much bigger than just going into the school and trying to work with the teachers and the child. And something that kept cropping up for me, excuse me, was the child was seen as the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so often it was so much bigger than
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was, gosh, 2022 was when I was mandated out of my job.
Yeah.
And I pivoted pretty radically to go online and use my skills to support people who were really struggling during that time.
Yeah. Fantastic.
A lot of mental health issues
Mm.
cropping up.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah, and it was really interesting because I found it enabled me to help myself through helping other people, which is often the way.
Mm.
It took the focus off me. And I then decided that was going to be my job, go
Yeah.
online, providing coaching for people. And it's kind of morphed from that.
Yeah. And you know what the thing is that people look at COVID and go, oh my God, wasn't it terrible? I suppose, it opens so many more avenues for people to go, actually, this is a disruptor. This is changing the
Mm.
way we've done things. I'm sorry, I'm going to have to interrupt because Chester, the dog, is being very annoying and he wants to go outside. Sorry.
Ah,
Analyze his behavior. It is always like, oh, mum's busy. What about me? What about me?
my curtain is moving behind me because my little falling.
It's
You
going,
can say,
Mom, what are you doing? What are you doing? Classic. Excellent.
what is it? Never work with children and animals.
Yes, indeed, indeed. Although I reckon they bring you the best joy and the best work stories.
Yeah, definitely. definitely. I'm still doing some horse stuff too. So,
Yeah. Well, you know, it's so rewarding. Now, if for those people who go, well, what is behavioral science? Kind of like in a nutshell, if you had to describe it to a plonker like me, what would you say? How would you describe it?
well, I start off by saying it's looking at why we do what we do.
Yeah,
In a nutshell,
yeah,
it's exploring why we do what we do, why we behave the way we behave under certain situations and not under other
yeah,
situations. But it's, again, it's so much bigger than that.
yeah.
Two things that popped up for me when you asked me about that was it's known for being pragmatic and parsimonious. So I grabbed the definitions just to expand on that. So we look at behavior in a sensible, realistic way.
That's
And we also look for simplicity. So,
yay.
for example, when I was working in schools, you'd get the parents, and you still hear it now, and you hear it with animals, and you hear it, we talk about ourselves in the same way. We'll create a story around why we do what we do.
Yeah,
And it's complicated, it's detailed, it's got a lot of emotive language in there. And then someone like me will come along, and I don't I do call people out. I call my clients out because that's what they want.
yeah,
But sometimes I just go, no, you're doing that because it's working for you.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
And if you strip away all the emotion and look for the most likely simplistic reason for why you're doing what you're doing, it's usually more likely that you're going to be able to sort it out.
yeah. Break the pattern, you know, and
Yeah.
that's the whole thing with horse riding is that I get people all the time go, you know, I'll give me 1,000 reasons why they haven't, you know, done what I've said. If I set them homework and go, you need to do this, they won't say to me, I've just been lazy or I haven't done this. They'll make this elaborate story of why they haven't done it. And I'm like, okay, let's dig into that.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an interesting point, actually, because often it is about doing it for you.
Yeah, yeah,
And I would be going, well, you're paying me
yeah,
to help you,
yeah,
but ultimately it's about you.
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
it is quite interesting when you strip away the layers and just, I haven't got time. Okay, so how are we going to solve that issue?
yeah. And what's more
Um,
important, you know, when people say to me, I haven't had time to ride, I'm like,
mm,
okay, you know, sitting down and watching TV or whatever, or scrolling on Facebook for half an hour is a waste of your time. You know, you could dash out and go for a quick run, or you can go and ride your horse, you can lunge it or whatever. It's quality, not
mm,
quantity, if you mark it
yeah,
as important. Whereas, you know, if you just think, oh, well, you know, it's not today, that's, you know, it becomes a habit. So sorry,
yeah,
I
yeah,
interrupted there. So how have
yeah,
you, I'd love to know how you have applied your knowledge to the horses and, you know, you've done body sculpting as well at bodybuilding.
yeah.
All of the facets of your life, I would love to know sort of how you apply it to all the different things.
Well, I guess, look, just going back to what is behavioral science, one of the uh, key distinctions between behavior analysis, for example, and you often hear people still referring to behavior modification,
Yeah,
is that we look at the function of a behavior. So,
right.
how is that behavior serving the individual?
Yeah,
Whereas behavior modification was simply how can we change behavior?
right. Yeah,
And out of that came a lot of dodgy stuff.
yeah, yeah.
People, it was applied in old people's homes and schools just to get compliance,
Yes. Yeah.
and a lot of bad press. And behavior analysis grew out of that. And we started to go, hey, we need to make sure that what we're doing is the best interests for the client,
Yeah.
not for the people around them.
Yeah.
So it's guided by a real strong code of ethics. And yeah, we look at what function does that behavior serve that individual, and can we replace that behavior with something that is going to be more helpful for them?
Yeah.
So, I mean, the classic I used with people is smoking, cutting out smoking, drinking, food, um, eating junk food. And you'll often hear people say, I'm going to give up drinking, I'm going to give up smoking. And then they take up eating or they take up drinking, because
Yeah.
they haven't looked at the function of that behavior.
Yeah.
And the smoking one, it's often just having something to do, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I say mobile phones are the modern day
God,
cigarette.
aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah. And so we would come along and we would go, when are you smoking? What do you feel when you're smoking? And can we fill it with something more appropriate for you? Because you can't have a vacuum. So bearing that in mind, when I was looking at working with the horses, for example, you'd be saying, rather than that horse has got a problem or there's a problem behavior, how is that behavior serving that horse?
Right. Yeah.
And uh, there are the main reasons for behaviors are to gain access to something,
Yeah.
to escape something. Another one is getting attention. And then the last one, which is actually really difficult to fix, is just because it feels good. If you that is a really hard one. We call it sensory.
Yeah.
It fulfills some sensory need.
Yeah.
And a lot of the behaviors that we see with children and animals are escape avoidance behaviors.
Yeah.
And therefore, we need to think, if that's the reason, what part do we play in preventing that?
So can I
And
can I ask you a question on that? So if
yeah,
they looked at horses, would you say that like, the horses that are trying to escape and then is about pressure, and so the rider applying more pressure and then the response from the horses to try and escape the situation to get away from the pressure? Would that be kind of what you're
that it can be. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The other one that we're also, going back to the ethics and serving the client, which applies to horses as well, is considering medical issues. Like we'll always say, have you ruled out a medical reason for the behavior?
Yeah.
This cropped up in schools a lot with children visually impaired, having hearing issues. And we could come in and we could set up a behavior program.
Socially. Yeah.
If they're deaf, they're deaf.
Exactly. And yeah,
Uh,
yeah, I'm
you
totally
know,
with you on that. And that's the same with horses, is that's
yeah,
having
yeah,
such a long career with horses. You come in and you look at the horse misbehaving, but you go, hang on, just make sure that it's not, sore, or that it hasn't got a sore guts, or that you've had it on a whole load of fresh grass. And the reason why it's tight in the back and bucking and spooking at everything is because, your horsemanship isn't right, because
yeah,
you can't install, all this work if actually the horse is saying to you, the reason I'm crazy is because the management is all up the wall.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
it's got to be a whole kind of look at the big picture.
And the big picture is pretty scary for some of us.
Yeah.
Uh, However, what I say to people is as long as we see the horse, the child, the partner,
Yeah.
or ourselves as the problem,
Yeah.
we are going to struggle to solve it. Whereas if we say, okay, this is potentially a medical issue, an environmental issue, or it's something I'm doing,
Yeah.
we're suddenly in control of the situation.
Yeah. Oh,
We
totally.
can,
Yeah.
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 So it's threatening in one sense, but it's also liberating in another because it means the individual is fine. It's just what's around it
Yes.
isn't working for it.
Yeah.
And I think that's been an eye-opener trying to share that with people because initially it can sound like it's you.
But
You need to do something different. But if it's with me, I'm completely in control of what I do. Therefore, that should be liberating.
yeah. And I've got a comment that I say to people. In fact, I just said it to a little girl when she fell off the other day. She got absolutely nailed. Horse stopped and swerved and she fell off. And she picked us up out of the sand and she's just gorgeous. And I said to her, why did you fall off, sweetie? And she goes, because she stopped. And I went, is that why you fell off? And she looked at me and she was like, ping. I fell off because my leg wasn't secure enough. And I said, see, but then the thing is that if you come to a fence thinking, if the horse stops, I'm going to fall off, you think, oh my God, I'm not in control of what the horse
Mm,
does all the time. So it makes me very vulnerable. Whereas if I come
yeah,
into the fence thinking, well, it's up to me. If I keep my heel down and keep my leg really strong, I'm in control of that. So if the horse swerves, I stay on. The issue is not
yeah,
swerving. The issue is your leg isn't good enough. So work on it.
yeah.
And then when it's good enough,
Love it.
it swerves and you survive and you think, oh, you bugger.
Yeah,
And you come around and go again. So I
yeah.
totally can relate to that in terms of being a rider as well.
No, that's beautiful. Uh, and I think we're struggling, or we have struggled in the past because we've had excuses.
Yeah.
We've had, and it's kind of a way out. And I mean, another one I go into is labeling. The minute we can label a horse or a child,
Yes.
we feel relieved.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah.
and I go, yeah, but that's not solving the problem. It's just adding another layer to it, in fact. But
Exactly.
going back to what you said about this, how has it influenced other areas in my life? And I guess something that I'm sharing with people a lot is the more connections you can make across areas in your life, the easier your life will be.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you try and make connections, you're going to have, it's just going to simplify your life.
Yeah.
And interestingly, when I started looking at what I've gravitated towards, I have found so many connections. I mean, years ago, I did Aikido. Now, Aikido is the only non-competitive martial art, and the connections between Aikido and positive reinforcement are just endless.
Yeah.
You're looking for what's working. You work with your opponent, so you don't meet them head on.
I've
So,
never even heard of it. I'm like, wow.
yeah, or you need to Google Aikido.
Yeah.
Steven Seagal is the
Right.
master of it. It's actually used quite a lot in police training as well because it's non-combative.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I'm a volunteer in the fire brigade, and I started looking at what they, how we operate in a fire situation. And I saw connections between how I used to work in education and how I work now with my clients and people with horses and you talked about it, the big picture.
Mm.
So when we go to a fire, the officer does what we call a 360, and he has to do it in like, 2 minutes,
Yes.
seconds. He will go out and he will assess the situation.
Yeah.
So there's this very calm, centered approach, which again goes back to Aikido.
Yeah.
You get into the zone. People will be there screaming, "Here's the fire." He's meanwhile walking around the whole building because the solution could be very separate from the fire.
Yes.
It could be as simple as unplugging something.
Yeah.
Whereas if we go in and drill down on the problem, we often miss stuff on the outside, which is contributing to it.
Yeah.
And I think I found that so valuable because people kind of understand that.
Yeah. Definitely.
When the fire brigade turn up, they're just so calm.
Yeah.
They don't, oh my God, what are we going to do? Oh. And in schools, we used to go in as well, but we were not seen as helpful through that calmness
Yeah. Yeah.
because they're saying, what are you going to do about this kid? And we'd be asking them about big picture stuff, and they don't want to tell you about that. They just want the problem removed.
Yeah. Well, that's instant gratification there, right there,
Yeah,
isn't it? It's like, don't pause and think about it. I just want you to fix it and fix it now, you know?
preferably yesterday.
Yes.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yes, so that was really important for me. And again, this is built on uh, that foundation of understanding and assessing a situation, what is contributing to it, which is all behavior analysis. What have we got control of? We've got control of the environment. We've got control of what we do. We don't want to be adding to the problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the other thing with the fitness, I mean, that was actually a personal thing that's journey for me, wanting to fix my own behavior
Yeah.
and prove a point.
Yeah.
So I wanted to fix my eating. I wanted to fix my self-esteem. I'd come out of a pretty devastating relationship breakup for me. And I thought, I can go one of two ways.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I chose, I'm just going to come back bigger and better.
And so, had you always been interested in fitness or not really?
I'd
Was
always run. I'd been a
right,
runner.
been
I
around.
ran marathons. Yeah, I'd got pretty competitive but I'd never been in a gym.
Right.
And I was 51 when I
Wow.
when I took up yeah, and so when I was thinking of what could I do that would combine, that would build my self-esteem, that would look at fitness, I just came up with this idea of doing a bikini
Yeah.
competition. And yeah, I thought it's a big enough, scary enough goal, but it's still achievable.
Yeah. Which is so important, you know.
Yeah. And the scary part for me wasn't actually the fitness, because I just can get stuck into anything. It was wearing a bikini. I'd never worn a bikini in my life. I used to dress from,
Really?
yeah.
And then
And
you have to go out on a big stage in your bikini.
a friend of mine said, "You realize what you've got to do, don't you?" I said, "Yeah, I'll do it. I'll get there." So I just applied the basic principles of behavior change.
Yeah.
I looked at getting somebody to coach me
Yeah.
who was actually, you probably know Britta.
Yes.
Yes.
Brita
So
Peterson.
yes,
Yes. Oh my
yes.
gosh.
So
Yeah.
she trained me
Yeah.
uh, online. It was all online. And I just started small,
Yeah.
step by step. That's something else that we're famous for, taking data, doing what we call a task analysis. So you break it right down. Where's the simplest starting point?
Yeah.
And you just build on that. And yeah, from a psychological point of view, and then that mental space of getting out there, I had watched a lot of YouTube clips, copied them,
Yeah.
and I also had this is something I've built into my coaching now, a strong reason why I
Yeah.
wanted to do it,
Yeah.
because I knew it was going to test me
Yeah.
to the limit. And the once I tapped into something that was really deep and meaningful for me to get up there and prove a point, I was unstoppable. You're just going to do it. Uh,
Yeah.
but
And I
we
think
we
that
rely
that's
on,
having the goal that resonates in you is really important. And I think
yeah.
certainly at this sort of age group, because I've just got into going back to the gym last November, because during when I was on the New Zealand squad, I had a gym membership that was paid for, to encourage me, and so I did lots of fitness training and heaps of weight training, all that sort of thing. And then I haven't done any for years. And then I was like, oh, menopause, your body mass just goes, and your
Yeah.
bone density. And I was like, oh my God, am I going to end up this broken old lady? So I'm like, right, I need to make it so that I have longevity so that I can go like, the clappers forever.
Mm,
And
mm,
I think that's a really big mental goal is you're like, this is my future. So,
yeah.
oh, good
Yeah.
on you. Yeah.
And I think just looking at other women in our age group and just being a bit going, flip, I don't want to be there.
Yeah.
And again, coming back to the excuses, you hear a lot of women, oh, I've had 3 kids. Well, I've competed against women who've had 6 kids,
Wow.
so it's
Yeah.
not,
No,
doesn't stack up.
no.
So yeah, you'll, and I think, you hear that in motivational speakers, whatever you say is what will be, right? So
True.
if you think that's your excuse,
Yep.
that's your excuse.
It's brainwashing
But
at its best,
yeah,
isn't it? You
yeah.
say it enough times, you believe it. So it's like it becomes.
Mm. And it's funny you should say that, because that was something else that I jotted down, was that whole that's where it starts with the language, and language is actually seen as behavior,
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's one thing
verbal
I
behavior.
pick up all the time. People say to me, I turn up to teach adult right or whatever, and there's a whole line of ladies there, and they all tell me in different language, either I'm a chicken, I used to be brave, but now I'm not, or, like I'm just an old nana or whatever. And I'm just like, listen to you all just standing there brainwashing yourself to be, this is me. I am a chicken, so you'll always be a chicken until you start changing the language of the way you speak to yourself.
Yeah. And there's some interesting ways of breaking that, because for some people it's so hard. And I've said to people, when you find yourself saying, I am something, think of it in terms of, I have the feeling of being
Yeah.
scared,
Yeah.
because you're trying to create distance from you verbally
Yeah.
and the behavior.
Yeah.
And I think there's a great example. There's a big difference between saying I'm stupid and sometimes I do stupid things.
Oh, totally. Totally.
And it's not semantics. Like I've had people say, oh, it's just semantics. And I go, no, it's actually really important,
Yeah.
because your identity is really important to how you feel about yourself. And if you're labeling yourself as somebody who's stupid or scared,
Yeah.
you will live up to that.
Definitely, definitely. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy. And it's like
Mm,
when you talk to people, you can say to them, you have just ridden the most amazing round. Your hands look brilliant. You were sitting up straight, but your legs were swinging back. And the moment you say that, that triggers in their mind and they walk away and they go, oh, my legs are swinging all over the place. They don't remember any of the good stuff. They only pick up on the one thing that wasn't good. And then they just repeat that. And I just say,
yeah.
you're going to say, I'm nervous, and you want to say to somebody, look, I'm really nervous and I just want you to be careful with me. Just say, I'm working on my bravery. And that says it all. It means that you're on
Mm,
a journey to get better, but you're saying,
mm,
what you want to become rather than, this is who I
yeah.
am today.
Yeah, no, that is so true, Kirsten. It's really underrated,
Mm,
really underrated.
mm.
Um, and I did a whole sort of little series of lives on self-care, and I said for me, self-care starts with the way you talk about yourself.
Definitely.
Because if you can't talk nicely about yourself, you're not going to do the behaviors required
Mm,
for
mm.
self-care.
Yeah,
And people say to me, I haven't got time to do, 10 minutes of yoga. Or everyone's got time to talk better about themselves. And that's where it starts.
definitely. Definitely. And I don't think people really um, think about their own self-care enough. I think they're so
Mm,
busy charging around and they're like, I just don't have time to add anything in. I'm like, well, what can you take out that you could do? Because this is everything. I
yeah.
love, there's a little card that I saw which was like, if you want a beautiful garden, no, what is it? You've got to plant in your garden the flowers you want to grow, and that's that
Mm.
whole thing of like, put good stuff in so that then you're surrounded by beautiful things rather than letting the weeds grow, because you're going, oh, I'm just too busy to do anything that's good for me.
Yeah. And again, I've tapped into the fire thing. We've got the safe person concept,
Yeah. So what's
which
that?
is, well, it sits alongside the, put your face mask on the plane first.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not in a good place if you're not safe, if you're not up to the mission.
Yeah. Totally.
It all stops. Whereas we kind of wear this badge of honor of I'm exhausted, I'm drained, I'm running around after everybody else. And I say to people that's actually not helping anybody, because you're doing it from a place of begrudgingness and what's that word I'm looking for? You're not doing it from good grace. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
do. And I love that comment because I just think, wow, that's a really good, analogy about the, being on the plane and having to actually breathe first. Because if you're carked it, you can't actually look after anybody
Yeah.
else. And it's the same
But
principle when you
yeah.
get on your horse as well, is that if you're not thinking straight, if you're not, in a good place, the horse will be looking up at you going, you're the pilot, and you're just saying to me, we're about to crash and die. Why? What horse will go, no problem. We're going to die anyway, so I'll just jump it for you and you just hold on. It'll start thinking, whoa, really? This is not a good scenario.
Mm.
So how you think and your mindset is everything really, isn't it?
It is. And it's, you just saying about the horse. It's like I have, and I did it, was it yesterday? I did it yesterday even. I thought, oh, I've got time to hop on Wilson and do a little, and I wasn't in the right space.
Yeah,
It was all about having time.
yeah,
I thought, I've got the time, I should. And I thought, no, don't do it
yeah.
because you're not in the right frame of mind. And that's when
So I
stuff
can
happens.
I can elaborate on that because I do everything like a bull at a gate. And I remember when I was probably about 19, 20, somewhere around there. During winter, I picked up clipping. And so I would go and clip all these crazy race horses. And I got one stable because the last girl had her leg kicked in half and shattered. So I was like, oh, I can take that up. But I found very quickly that if I turned up to clip them and I was going, oh my God, I've got to clip 4 horses this afternoon and then I've got to go and do this. As soon as I turned the clippers on, they would all misbehave. And I would be
Mm,
like, oh, it was just so stressful. But if I went and just took time to pat the horse and chill and just go, okay, let's just build a bit of a relationship, I didn't have any trouble. But
mm.
you have to get a little bit older sometimes. I probably would have clipped for years going, do the twitch up, you're being naughty. Whereas then I was like, you know what? These horses are pretty big, and when they get stressed, you having a twitch or having its leg held up doesn't help. You actually need to chill and just say, okay, stop pressuring the horse. If you pressure them, they go, what the hell is the matter? And then they start getting really stressed. Whereas if you just have that side, take 5, pause and go, okay, I'm pressed for time today. Should I ride? Well, if I want to ride, go for a hack, but
Mm,
you get on,
yeah.
just kind of accept I'm not feeling the best today. So make it a really low stress ride rather than I'm going to go and ride dressage. I'm like, really? You're like a cage lioness with a headache today, You go get on your horse, it's going to say, get stuffed. You're in a bad mood.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah. And I don't know about, whether this will resonate with some of your audience, is that whole pre-paving and setting yourself up for success.
Yeah.
And if you're going in with that mindset of, oh my God, I've got, 20 minutes, I should be able to fit in, you're already going in with the wrong,
Yes.
oh, it's going to put you on the back foot. It's not setting you up for success. And as you said, you're going to feel that pressure and then oh God, our horses are just so sensitive, and
Yeah.
I don't think we give them enough credit
No. And
how
I
much
would
they
say
really.
that pre-paving, as you call it, I think is really important. And the other thing that I talked about with some students on my mentorship program yesterday was about, I have a saying that I love, which is, think of it now. What is it? Is expect nothing and accept everything. Now,
Love it.
when I first
Yeah.
read it, I scowled and thought, oh, that's so typical. That's just that whole airy fairing of don't
Yeah.
expect to do any good. We're all winners. And I thought, what a load of rubbish. And then I stopped and dug into it and went, actually, wow. The next time you hop on your horse with an expectation of how it should go, and this is what happens in competition, is you think, oh, he goes so well, he's been going so well outside or at home. You build this expectation of how you want it to go. Then the
Yeah.
pressure creates this anxiety between you and the horse. And then he starts thinking, why are you not riding like you normally do? And then you say
Mm.
to me, he's not going well. And I'm like, well, you're riding like a stiff board. I don't
Yeah.
say that. Of course, I word it very differently. But, but it's that whole thing. And then you start to realize it's not just that horses start getting naughty when they get in the ring. It's about our expectation and how we get on thinking that we're totally fine. And in actual fact, we have this drive that we're like, I want to win. It's such an
Mm.
empty comment I want to ride a beautiful trot. I want to ride
Mm,
a nice circle. I want to have a great rhythm into a fence. All these things are bite-sized pieces that you can kind of
yep.
focus on how to do well. And then I say
Yeah.
to students, and if it doesn't feel great, sometimes it's not about how it feels. Sometimes you just have to bluff it and go, it's not how I want it to feel when it's great, but this is as good as I've got right now. So let's just keep working on how I can make it better.
Love it. And you've just reminded me of something that I first discovered. I was really lucky to be able to compete in Singapore. And I went with a whole team of people who it should have been a one of those documentaries, you know.
Yes, I just think
Yeah,
that sounds fascinating.
we did Peak Week in a resort, and oh my God, yeah, it would have been a really good documentary. But I said to myself on the day of the competition, because everything went pear-shaped as it does when you compete overseas in anything, I probably. And I just said to myself, my expectation, it has got to be within my control. And I thought, I'm going in to have a blast. I'm just going to have fun. I am just going to enjoy myself. And I think that has also helped in a variety of contexts, is going in with that idea of you can have an expectation, but make it achievable.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
if it's dependent on you, I'm just going to make sure that I go in and I have a good time. And then I'm a winner regardless.
yes, yeah,
But that acceptance has played a big part in coaching as well, because I've had a lot of people go, well, I can't accept certain things. And I go, well, it's like forgiveness, isn't it? It's not about people getting away with stuff, or it's about you and making your life better. It's not about the other person. And that acceptance of what is doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to strive for something better or to improve yourself, but
definitely.
you're not fighting something that's already happened.
Yeah, yeah. And that's the whole thing of journey, relationships and journeys as well. Is like if you keep butting heads all the time and going, yes, but they're not doing this. You're like, well,
Mm.
if you keep focusing on that, you're missing the journey. It's never there's no such thing as perfection. That's what I say to my
Yeah,
show hunter riders. You know that show hunter riders are unhappy perfectionists, eh? Because if you get a distance that's slightly off, you go, oh, it's too close. Oh, it's too long. And I'm like, oh, for goodness sake, you're so whingy. You just had a great canter. Yes, it was slightly longer, but you just accepted it and saw it. Job's done. You know,
yeah,
it's the journey. The more you enjoy the journey and see it as a learning, a growth opportunity, the better it gets.
yeah, yeah.
Whereas if you're constantly thinking about, I want it to be perfect, you just end up being a whinger.
Yeah. And something that's come out of the law of attraction, because I loved what you talked earlier about stuff being fluffy with the expectation,
Yeah.
fluffy and woolly and all of that. And I've got quite a going back to making connections across things. I think you can always find some connection back to something solid and tangible. The one that gets me with the law of attraction is it's what is it? It's you're never done.
Yeah.
You're never going to go, right, I'm happy. My house is clean. All the sheets are put away for the B&B.
Yeah. Exactly.
It's it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And so I started framing it as, and I think you said it, the growth and expansion. It's natural to want more. So you're going to achieve, and then you're going to grow into the next thing and expand and grow into the next thing.
Yeah.
And that kind of helps that perfectionist break that perfectionist cycle, that
Yeah.
you're always going to want more.
Yeah.
It's just the way it is.
It is. It's human nature. I often finish the
Yeah.
lesson and I'll say to students, should we finish on that or should we do one more? And then I go, I would love you to do one more, but I don't think your horse should. And that's the problem being
Mm.
a human. I'm so greedy. I'm like, oh, let's do it again. But then I look at the horse and go, well, you just did a really good job. You shouldn't be made to do it again. But as you know,
Yeah.
we're just so greedy. That's generally, we want more and more. We get one thing sorted and then we go, it's like you celebrate for a day and you go, job's done. Then you go, oh, I could do that next. And so then
Yeah.
it's evolution, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah, and it's evolution on a small scale. It's on an individual level, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's a healthier way to look at it because that's something else that ties into the whole behavior when people are trying to change stuff.
Yeah.
I've stopped using that word change because change to me kind of implies that you're not right now.
Yes. Yeah.
I need to change.
Yeah.
You're okay as you are, you're growing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's more about, and like you said, it's that journey and it's ongoing.
Yeah.
And the people that are happiest seem to be the people that can enjoy the journey.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Definitely. It's all these little things that bring together and make you realize that as you get older, you think, gosh, there's so much to understand about yourselves and, being able to help other people when you get to a point where you start to understand what actually brings your life together and makes it you feel positive. You just go, gosh, it's a really nice thing to be able to share and encourage other people and give them some sort of insight of, how life is best
Yeah.
lived.
Yes, because there's going to be that idea of people have said, "Oh, there's so many coaches out there," and you'll have come up against that, eh? There's so much out there, and I say to people, "Yeah, but certain people are going to resonate with you versus somebody else." There is you've got a message that only a certain people can only hear certain people's messages.
And
They can't
and it
hear
needs to be at the
another.
right time as well,
Yeah,
because I can
yeah,
say something to students every
yeah.
week, and it's not until they sometimes get a feeling and then they go, oh my gosh, I now understand what
Mm,
you mean. It's like I say
yeah.
to them, when you ride with your hands, you've got to have a bend in your elbow, you've got to feel like your wrists are floating, like you're pushing a wheelbarrow in front of you. And it's not until they get a horse where it goes into a moment of self-carriage and then takes the bit forward that they go, oh, I get what you mean. All the time, I just thought I don't understand that. So sometimes
Yeah.
it can be a moment in time where they get a feeling and then they go, yep, now I kind of get what you've been talking about for years.
Which comes back to what we talked about beforehand, which was this, it's the ongoing nature of coaching and training.
Yeah.
And that's something that I've shared, and especially from the horse point of view, that the training is the way of life, isn't it? The shows, the events, the competitions are the icing on the cake. And that's what I relate to in terms of bodybuilding and competing. It's the training for it is the joy, needs to be the joy. And the icing on the cake is being able to get up on stage and show it off.
Yeah.
But if that's your sole driver, the rest of it's going to be blimmin' hard work.
Oh, yes. Gosh, yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think, the minute you embrace that training your horse is what it is,
Yeah.
that's the beauty of it.
It's
Um,
it's building the relationship between you and the horse. It's building, confidence and trust. And then the competitions are testing whether there's holes in your training. And so
yeah.
that's basically what it is. When people come to me and they go, I had an absolute crapper of a show. And it did this and it did that. I'm like, that's okay. That's showing you where the holes are. So therefore
Mm.
you come away and you go, always write things down. You go to the show and you go, oh, these are the things that were dreadful. And you go, right, that's cool. That's given me my short-term goals for the next month or two.
Yeah,
Write down what
yeah.
you want better and then break it down into smaller bits and go, okay, well, how can I make this into a bite-sized piece so I feel like it can actually make some progress?
And something that might be useful for is to look at it from the behavioral perspective, which is generalization.
Yeah,
So you've got it nailed at home
yeah,
in the home environment with nobody making any noises and nothing going on. And this is something that came up in my master's with the float loading. I talked a lot about people will say, oh, he loads perfectly at home. But, at the show, and we go, yeah, because you've got dogs running around, you've got people yelling, you've got other horses. Create that. And so that was part of what I built into my training was you raise the criteria.
Yeah.
So you start adding. So if you know that you've got it nailed at home, you try and replicate the show environment, which is why local shows are really useful. Get out,
Yeah,
and start generalizing and yourself, because I think you pointed it out, you go to pieces.
exactly.
It's not the horse.
Do you know what? When
Uh,
I was a kid, I still remember saying, whenever I want to take Flicker to the pony club rallies or I wanted to go to the beach with my friends, he would never let me catch him. And then years later, I studied, and then I'm like, oh my God, no wonder. I used to walk down to his paddock and I'd be so excited because I was going to go and do something. He'd take one look at me and be like, stuff off, not today.
yeah,
Never let me catch
yeah,
him. And I just thought, how does he know? But I was like, well, that's because my heart rate was elevated and horses can sense
yeah,
them from meters away. So he'd have just turned with the herd mentality and be like, ooh, she's excited. No thanks. No, but people
yeah,
just don't realize these things.
yeah. And yet there's an example where you get that story growing, don't you? You'd get a
Yeah,
story from it.
yeah,
You just go, well, no, you're behaving differently.
yeah,
And he's picking up on it. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
good.
definitely. The number of times, yeah, I felt even when you had people coming to see you work with your horses, you know, and I used to go, I would start to feel sick because I thought, oh, this person is really going to pick holes in my stuff. Sure enough, the horses are below par.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's pressure.
yeah.
Well,
Mm.
I do some mindset training, for the horse riding, and in it I have a section which is all about immersion therapy, and that's
Yeah.
basically what you just talk about is that you are saying to people, your normal ride is kind of like pressure is here, and then you ask
Mm.
somebody to video you, and then your pressure goes up to here, and then you wonder why the horse isn't behaving as well, and then you go for a lesson pressure comes up here because you want to show the coach that you've been doing really well. And so you put this pressure on yourself that I want to show her I've been working. And then the next level is going to a competition. And then, representing a team or whatever, next level.
Yeah.
The whole time
Yeah.
you're always having to understand what the different pressure's doing, but trying to replicate that pressure, like you just said, at home so that then that way there you get your horse and you start to build that relationship that you kind of can go, okay, what can I do to ask you in a sympathetic way and not get
Yeah.
angry when you feel a little bit tense, but also how can I get used to riding and trying to, keep my pressure down a little bit as well.
Yeah, and it's, a lot of the top athletes are masters of that. So if you can borrow from, they have rituals. And I go, well, you can use that word ritual. You can just say they practice something at home that they can practice before an event. So it brings them back into the home mode.
Yeah.
And I mean, the target for me was huge. Horse knows the target. You take that to the show, you do some target stuff, and you just see a complete.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I know
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
And you feel good because you know it's going to work. And then you just come back
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
But if you can think of it, it's take the emotion away from it,
Yeah.
simplify it,
Yeah.
which comes back to being what's the most likely thing that I could do that's going to get a result? Oh, practice something at home and I start increasing the demands. And then I have something that I do at home that I do at the event. So the horse knows that.
It's familiar. And he goes, oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. And, we get caught up in that, well, easy, steady, easy.
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
whereas
Um,
if you just hold the target out and say, target,
yeah.
go, oh, okay.
Yeah. And that's that,
Um,
I would say as well, when I say to students, when you go to a show and your horse is spinning around in circles and he's like beside himself and you're going, woo, woo. I'm like, I've bungee jumped. I hate heights, but my friends got it cheaper. And so they were like, you have to do it because we're going to get a bonus, a discount. I was like, oh, my God. So anyway, tied together with my friend and they go, 3, 2, 1, bungee. And I grab the post and I'm like, I don't want to go off the plate. I don't want to. Anyway, they go, take your hands from the post, Kirstin. hey, have you seen over there on the brow of that hill that there's a little boof and then I get pushed? But I was so busy looking to see what they were describing to me at the top of the hill, I stopped thinking about the fact that I thought I was going to die. And then I
Yeah.
looked there and I just replaced it with a different thought. And then I
Yeah.
was like, I stopped feeling like, oh, So that's that whole
Mm.
thing. When the horse starts going, oh my God, I'm at a show, this is terrible. Like you say, having something that you can go, hey, horse, look at the target.
Yeah.
Or, hey,
Yeah.
horse, come on, let's walk over a pole on the ground, or let's
Yeah.
put you on a circle or leg yield or something. The horse then goes, oh, what? And instead of
Yeah.
like, oh my God, I'm at a party and there's 500 horses and I want to have a great time, you're
Yeah.
saying to them, come and look at this.
Distraction.
It is. It is.
Distraction. Yeah. Yeah. Refocus, which again goes back nicely to that idea of focus on what you want, not what
Yes.
you
Yeah.
don't want. And
Yeah.
we're so busy trying to fix the problem
Yeah. Yeah.
instead of redirecting and going, this is what I want.
Yeah.
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 Love it.
It's been so lovely to have a chat with you. So, if anybody is interested in finding out a little bit more about what you do with your coaching and things like that, shall I put a link in the description for this video,
Yeah.
and then people can kind of contact you and
Yep.
because it's fascinating and knowing yourself and knowing how you think and why you do things is just a step on the journey to helping yourself become a better rider, become a better, human, really, and
Yeah.
we all want to just keep growing and improving. So it's
Yeah.
it's been really good chatting to you.
Likewise, Kirsten. Thank you.
Pleasure. Awesome. Take care.